Hi there BookTube, it's Eleanor here, and as you can see I'm in a new location today and I'm going to be talking about my recent reads. So the sun is really shining here. It's only something like 8 o'clock in the morning. I'm on holiday with my family at my parents' house in Dorset, and it's beautiful and we're having a lovely time. I've been doing lots of reading though, but I just haven't had a chance to do much filming, so I thought today I would try and sit down and talk to you about the first and second lot of Fairytale retellings that I've read for the month of August. So if you watched my TBR for August, you'll know that me and Janet from Swirly Girly Reads, who I will link down below, are doing a bit of a readathon-ish thing together where we are reading the original fairy tale of a princess, and then we are reading 3 retellings from that princess, and then also watching a film. So the first one that we decided to start with was The Little Mermaid. Now The Little Mermaid was probably the hardest for us to find different things to go with it. However, we obviously got hold of the original Little Mermaid, and that was what we read first. So the original Little Mermaid is by Hans Christian Andersen, and the main thing that came across in this to me is that it is not a feminist tale. I really didn't like the gender roles and how they were portrayed, but looking at it in terms of the time that it was written, I think this was probably quite an accurate portrayal of how women were treated. I really enjoyed the moral aspect, the moral religious aspect of this in terms of the whole story. At the end it was sort of a moral story to tell children that if you're good you get to heaven quicker, which I thought was an interesting idea. One of the things I hated about The Little Mermaid was her disregard for her family's suffering and for others' suffering. I felt she was quite selfish, which obviously isn't the version we get from the Disney cartoon. My favourite thing I think about the story of The Little Mermaid was the description of the gardens and the mermaid kingdom. I just thought that was beautiful. I thought the description of the flowers in the gardens. In the original tale, each of the mermaids, the mermaid sisters, has her own garden, and I really enjoyed the descriptions of those gardens, and that was probably my favourite part of the writing. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was interesting. It was very different to the story that I knew. Obviously they get adapted to be much more sugary sweet, especially when it comes to Disney, and so I gave this one 4 stars. The next book that I picked up is one that I haven't actually got with me because unfortunately I read it before I came away and didn't think to bring it with me, but that was Forgive My Fin by Tara Lynn Child. I really enjoyed this for what it was. It was a YA mermaid story. It was very predictable. It was romantic. I really liked the mermaid kingdom the most in this, and I really enjoyed the descriptions of that and the lore behind it, and I liked the way that the mermaids bonded with each other. I thought that was a really clever sort of way of incorporating romance and how they sort of get stuck together. I just felt this was a really good and easy read. In terms of its relationship with the original story, I didn't feel like it was a close retelling. I felt it was more of a book which contained some of the aspects that were talked about within the original story. So you had the idea of staying on land or sea, you had the idea of falling for someone who is perhaps not the right person for you but not realising it. This story is about Lily. She's the princess of a mermaid kingdom and she's been living on land for a number of years. She's got a high school crush and she wants to tell him, well, she needs to tell him because they need to decide if they're going to be together. In this story, Lily wants this particular crush to be her first kiss, and in terms of the mermaid kingdom, when you kiss someone you bond with them, which is almost like marriage, so it means a big deal. She is wanting to tell this boy, and then something happens, there is another boy involved, and you know, YA predictability ensues, but it was really good fun and a really quick, easy read, and I gave this 4 stars. The next retelling was Serena by Don Joe Napoli. This story was beautifully written. I really loved how the author had married up the mermaids with Greek mythology. I thought that was a really clever idea, and the whole way through this book I was loving the story, I was loving the romance, I was loving the description of the mermaid kingdom, and then it stopped. The book literally stopped with no resolution, and it really frustrated me. That part I felt was really abrupt and unfinished, and unfortunately because of that, this was well on its way for me in terms of its writing style and description to being 5 stars, but I just couldn't because I was so disappointed by the ending, so I ended up giving it 4 stars. And so the final book in the retellings of The Little Mermaid was The Summer of Chasing Mermaids by Sera. I really love the cover of this. It had great reviews on Goodreads and I was really excited to try it out. This one had a slow start and the writing style took me a while to get into it. I wasn't quite sure what was going on. It was a bit of a slower read and I was like, oh no, I'm not going to enjoy this. But thankfully, as the book went on, I really got involved in the story. I really enjoyed the romance aspect of it and I really liked the little nods to the original Little Mermaid in this. So the main character in this hasn't got her voice, and I really liked that sort of play on that part of the original myth. So Elise is the youngest of 6 siblings. She comes from Tobago. She is a twin and she is now living with her aunt in an Oregon seaside town, and we find out that she can't speak. She's lost her voice in an accident. We don't really know what's happened, and so she's there on her own without her twin, without her siblings, without the rest of her family, and she's living with her aunt and her cousin for the summer at least. And we're just finding out about her story and also about the people around her, about other people that are in this town. And I just really enjoyed the different characters in this. I loved the little brother of our main male protagonist. I just thought he was brilliant and I really enjoyed the story. It really grew on me, this one, and once I was halfway through I couldn't put it down and I really enjoyed finding out what happened. So I gave this one 4 stars. I'm really sorry about the lighting in this. Every time I move there's a shadow in my face, but it's so sunny here and I just couldn't film inside because it's so beautiful and I wanted you to all see this beautiful landscape here, so I'm putting up with the squinty eye here so that we can all enjoy some sunshine. So then myself and Janet watched Ponyo, which was our film adaptation. Now I think this is by Murasaki, and he said that although it's not a retelling of The Little Mermaid, it is loosely inspired by The Little Mermaid, and it's such a beautiful story. It's I love all of his work. I mean, he does like Howl's Moving Castle and Spirited Away and My Neighbour Totoro, which if you haven't watched that, it's so much fun, and I really enjoyed this. It was such a beautiful story. I love the music that's with it. I love the inspiration, and the characters are just so cute, and I definitely recommend watching this one, and I gave it 4.5 stars. So the next fairy tale retelling we moved on to is Rapunzel. Whoop, my book's upside down, and this is my book of Grimm's Tales, where I read the original fairy tale from, and it was as I remembered. The story is exactly what I remembered and I really enjoyed it. It was a solid story. It was only about 2 or 3 pages long, and I'm pleased I've refreshed my memory for going into the other book. So the first one that we picked up was Golden by Cameron Doki. This is a really short book. It's only a couple of 100 pages long, and I really enjoyed it. It was written very fairy tale-esque. Its writing was really nice, and I thought it was a really good take on the Rapunzel myth. One of the things I really loved about this was that the evil sorceress, so if you don't know Rapunzel, which I'm sure most of you do, but Rapunzel is taken away from her parents at birth because her mother has craved this Rapunzel flower, this Rapunzel plant during her pregnancy, and they've stolen it from the sorceress who lives next door, who has caught them and said, you must give me your first child. And so she's taken away and put in a tower and kept there by this sort of evil sorceress. And in this, the sorceress isn't evil, which I really enjoyed. The pact made with the parents is a pact, this isn't a spoiler because it's right at the beginning. The pact made in this, with the parents in this is that if the mother cannot love Rapunzel, then she gets to the sorceress gets to take her and bring her up as her own, and the mother is very vain and shallow, and Rapunzel is born without any hair, and the mother cannot love her. and so the sorceress from next door takes her and brings her up as her own. And then there's a twist, and it does say it on the back, so I'm not feeling too bad, I'm not spoiling anything, but she lives with her for 16 years. You find out about their relationship, and then we find out that the sorceress has another daughter who is locked in a tower and cannot get out, and she needs Rapunzel's help in order to get her out. And this is where the more of the Rapunzel story comes in. It's really, really brilliant. It's a fast read, but it was really lovely written. I loved this take on Rapunzel, and I gave this one 4 stars. So next up was Fairest of Them All by Carolyn Turgeon. Again, this was a really great take on the Rapunzel myth. This combines Rapunzel and Snow White. We have a Rapunzel who is living with her sort of adopted mother, or you know, the sorceress in the woods. A prince comes by one day. They have a tryst, an evening of love, and then he leaves and he's unable to marry her. He has to marry someone else for his kingdom, and that woman that he marries ends up being Snow White's mother. So you can see that we're starting this sort of marriage of the two fairy tales, and Rapunzel and Snow White meet, and it's just a really brilliant story. I really enjoyed this one. All of these books are books I didn't know anything about. I just looked up books for each of the fairy tales and tried to make a decision on what we were going to read, and we just sort of went for ones that sounded good, and I was just so impressed again with this one, and I gave it 4 stars. And then the final one for this video, which is the 3rd and final book in our Rapunzel books, is Bitter Greens by Kate Forsyth. Now, I was a bit not put off, but I was a bit nervous because this one is a bit of a bigger book. It's 500 pages, and as usual, for some reason I get all like, oh, that's going to be a long book and it's going to be, you know, really hard, and I don't know why, but I absolutely loved this story. This is the story of 3 women all intertwined beautifully. It's the story of Rapunzel, who is told to a woman in a nunnery. She's been banished there by the king, and she's being told this story by another nun, and we follow the story of this woman who is hearing the story and how she came to be in the nunnery. And then we're also hearing the story of the sorceress or the witch from the Rapunzel story, and it's just beautifully written, beautifully interwoven. I loved how it all came together at the end. That was just brilliant. I can't wait. I'm definitely picking up more of Kate's books. I know she's written one called Wild Girls, which I'm getting straight away and can't wait to pick up, and I definitely recommend reading this one. It was a brilliantly beautiful written book, very, very well done, and I gave this one 5 stars. So far the fairy tales are going great. The next one we're going on to is Cinderella, so I'm looking forward to that one, and I will wrap up again in a similar style once I've read 2. So you may not be getting Friday reads from me or what I've read videos over the next few weeks till the end of August, because I'll be wrapping up these fairy tales every time I get through sort of 6 books. So yeah, I'm really enjoying this. It's such a brilliant way of reading these. I'm really enjoying reading with Janet, loving hearing her thoughts on this, and it's just a really, really fun thing to be doing. So I look forward to chatting to you a bit more in my next video. So that's it from me from Dorset, and I will see you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.